welcome to the Thrive with Live show today. It's Katy Simpson here, and thank you so much for joining us live or on the replay. So I have a very special guest who she's just so wonderful at what she does. She can just, in a few minutes flat or a few seconds, she can really help with all sorts of things to do with podcasting and your business. So I'm really excited to bring her on because I know she's going to help you so much. So we are talking about conquering your busy schedule and creating a hit show and mastering podcasting. So maybe podcasting is a new sort of concept or idea for you. Maybe you've been thinking about it. Maybe you've thought, no, it's probably not for me. It's too complicated and time consuming and, overwhelming or whatever. And I haven't got time for that. I haven't got brain space for that. Well, hopefully Ana is going to dispel those fears today. So I'm going to bring her on just before we welcome our podcast listeners. And so do say hi to us in the comments and let us know, have you got a podcast? Are you interested in having one? And let's have a chat. So we'll bring in Ana now. Ana, welcome. Hello. Blasting everyone's eardrums with the air horn there. Thank you so much for coming on, Ana. If you're watching live with us, you will see that Ana has, she looks fantastic, and she's got this great neon sign behind her, podcast space. So she'll tell us about that and what she does later. And so Ana, tell us where you're calling in from today.
Well, I'm coming from Dallas, Texas, the capital of the Poland of the world right now. It's springtime here, and my God, am I fascinated by everything that happens in your voice, in your face, in your body, in your mind. But no, we're not going to be talking about that. But I just thought it was interesting that, like, as I'm podcasting these days, I'm like, everything changes with the seasons, and indeed it does.
Do you struggle with it then? Because we've actually got high spore levels and like a horrible spore called aspergillus. It's like quite a dangerous mold. I see that on the weather thing. So is it bad there and it affects you, does it?
Yeah, so basically it's funny because I'm originally from Portugal. I lived in London in the UK for about 5 years, and I moved to Dallas in about, I think it was 2016. And for the first 3 years, I never had allergies. And then at some point it hit me, and I was like, oh, this is what people talk about. And as a podcaster, I have like, I think you can see like a little bit of like the humidifier behind me, because that really helps with just like not struggling as much with dry air. So like, I'm just already giving tips on podcasting. I was like, if you're podcasting, get your humidifier out.
What did I tell you, everyone? We'll have to start the podcast. I have to press play, as it were, in a minute, because she just helps so much. So even with her allergy struggles. So great to see you, Ana. Thank you so much for being on the show. I am just so honoured to have you on. I love what you do and what you teach and everything, and I know you can be so helpful. So let's just do this little intro video. So don't go anywhere, anyone, and we will be back in a second. But in the comments, if you're live or on the replay, let us know where you are watching, listening from. And let us know if you've got a podcast or if you're thinking about one. So don't go anywhere. We will be back with you any second.
This is the Thrive with Live show, the podcast where you can learn to go live with poise, professionalism, and peace of mind. Live video is the best free tool to win clients and grow your income and authority. So, if you want to ditch the overwhelm and confusion to skyrocket your online success through the dynamism of live video, then you are in the right place. This podcast covers all aspects, from your mindset, voice, style, and personal branding to all the technology and tools you need to get started and grow with live video. And now, here is your host, Katy Simpson.
Hello and welcome again to the Thrive with Live show. It's Katy here and I've got a wonderful guest with me today, Ana Xavier. I'm really excited to bring her on. So we are talking today about mastering your podcast, and lots of us this day and age have a very busy schedule for one reason or another, and thinking about starting a podcast might just bring a big alarm bells in your mind, and you just think, well, it sounds like a great idea, but there's no way, I'm just too busy, I'm doing this and that and the other, and how could I make it work? Well, Ana will be giving us loads of tips today, showing you how you can do it. She is a podcasting strategist, and her superpower is the ability to help clients identify a podcast idea that accelerates their business or professional goals. She's helping you to establish trust with your ideal customer and avoid content creator overwhelm. And I need a little party noise for that. Woohoo! Ana has travelled a lot. She's originally from Portugal. She created her first podcast back in 2008 while completing her Bachelor of Science in Communications and Journalism from the University of Oporto. That's a really bad accent, but never mind. Maybe she can help me with that. After a decade of experience in podcasting, broadcasting and digital marketing in Portugal and London, Ana moved to Dallas in 2016, where she is now. So as a skilled podcast producer and strategist, she saw the opportunity to help entrepreneurs to get their message across, also create a meaningful impact in the world. And in January 2020, she founded what she calls the Podcast Space, which is an online podcasting consulting agency. And she works specifically with female entrepreneurs, which is what I do here as well, who support the betterment of others in their common communities. Along the way, she mentors them to make a greater positive impact on their audience, as well as become better hosts. She and her team have helped so far more than 40 professionals and entrepreneurs launch and improve their podcast. And each month they help thousands more through their resources. So Ana is going to tell you a bit later about where you can find her, but she is quite an Instagram whiz. I know that, at least. She is great on there. So I would definitely think about following her on there, but I'm sure she'll tell you where she is elsewhere as well, if she has any time to do anything else, because she's very visible on there. So let's bring in the wonderful Ana. Yay!
Hi, Katy.
Ana. Thank you so
Thank
much
you for
being on
having
here.
me.
Oh, I'm thrilled to have you. I'm really genuinely excited for this conversation. I know that can be a bit of a cliche. Everyone says, oh, I'm so excited to be on here. I'm so excited to have you here. Everyone says that. But I am, because you're amazing.
Same. We first met at Ecamm's Leap into Podcasting last year, and we've been kind of like Facebook and Instagram friends since. And so I'm excited to be here because I've been seeing you pop up all the time. And when you invited me, I was like, hell yes, let's go.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do try and pop up in Instagram. I'm trying to pop up in Instagram a bit more than I have been. Give it some more love. Facebook is my sort of comfy place, and but I've been really inspired by all your content on Instagram. You're able to do something that a lot of people find really hard, including me really, is to boil down what you teach into simple things and simple sort of tips and strategies, so people can come away with something. You're not just saying, oh, listen to my show, go over here and go elsewhere and listen. You are a podcast strategist, so we can see that from your content. So it's really, really good. I was just going to say something else and I can't remember what. So
That's so good. I think that what you said is really on point. Even though I'm a podcast strategist, I truly believe that we can meet people where they are. And so, I've for the past will be soon 4 years, have been building community on Instagram because I think it's a really like nice place to create a community. And again, Facebook, same thing. I think that whatever you want to do, you can just move in that direction and focus on that one platform. And I think that like we can start giving tips away already. But but a big mistake that podcasters do is just to make the podcast like the ultimate destination, where for me is like, how can I provide value for you where you are right now? Because exiting a platform to go to a podcast platform, wherever it is, like Apple Podcast, Spotify, it really involves a lot of effort. And that's the thing that most podcasters don't understand, is that when you're asking someone to leave the platform to go and listen to your show, most times the listener is going to be like, not now. Right. And so for me is, how can I build that connection with you on the platform you're in, normally Instagram or, LinkedIn? Build a relationship there, and then every now and again tell you, hey, subscribe to the show, so that when people do subscribe to the show, they don't need to do anything else because it automatically drops on their phone. But I constantly show up on the platform, giving them what they need, of course teasing a little bit, but at the same time, like, how can I show up, show value? And whenever you are, because I think a lot of people are just like, the podcast is like, the ultimate thing that I want people to do. Whereas, like, to me, a podcast is a part of your business, is all another tool. And so I don't see it as the final stage, is just another avenue. So if you're driving, obviously you're not going to be on social media. But again, what is it that my ideal person is doing? And how can I remind them that, yeah, hey, like, think about this. I'm huge on education. So I think that's an important part of the whole, like, content strategy.
yeah, that's so interesting, because somebody like you and me to a certain extent, adore you know how great podcasting is. You really focus down on that and hone in on that, and there's so much about podcasting that can just totally immerse you in talking about that, doing stuff towards that. It's a whole world in itself. And so that's so interesting and insightful and helpful, I think, that you see it as a whole strategy, that you need to build community as well, don't you? And it's yeah. So can we backtrack a little bit, Anna? First of all, am I saying your surname correctly?
It's all good. So I normally tell people that, like, think about X-Men and there's Professor Xavier. So that's
Okay.
how, yeah. So normally I get Xavier. I'm like, I don't mind Xavier because I'm saving you from overwhelm. So that's all good.
So it's like EX really at the beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Xavier. Yeah,
Okay,
perfect.
fantastic. Apologies about that.
Oh, it's all good.
So yeah, let's go back to, what is it about podcasting that can really help people in their business, or maybe they have like a non-profit or something like that. And what do you why do you love helping people with podcasting? What is it about it?
Yes. So, great question. I think that the podcast world is very flexible, and that's why it works really well for different entrepreneurs, small business owners, nonprofits, and that is because it builds trust with the listener. You have their, like, sometimes undivided attention, sometimes they're multitasking, but still they're listening to you. And whether you're doing it on audio format or video format, it is really a time to build that trust, because again, when people are reading an email, they don't really hear your passion, your confidence, just the love that you have for that topic. And on social media, people are just kind of not primed for focusing truly on what they're doing. Whereas when they're listening, they really give you the attention that you need. And so you can build trust with the audience for a longer period of time. You can really shine in your expertise. And I think that it's also an opportunity to showcase one, your humanity, because we are so kind of like formatted to be perfect. And like on a podcast, you can really showcase that like imperfect side of us. And honestly, like my motto is progress over perfection, because I think a lot of business owners are so scared to start podcasting, to start posting anything that is thought leadership wise, because they're like, if I'm not going to be doing it perfectly, then there's no point. Whereas we are all missing out, like the bigger brands. And I think that this is where like I always come back to, anyone in communication today realizes that 5 years ago, communication in general from any entrepreneur, business owner, whatever it was very like serious. And today is very humanizing. So people are seeking to connect authentically with brands. And so if the bigger creators like Amy Porterfield, for instance, like you can really see there's been a push to bring Amy into the full front of the brand and make her more human so we can connect, because we want to be sold by like our friend. We don't want to be sold by the big, Tony Robbins who's like, do this and like we don't like any of that. Like it just doesn't connect with us, especially after COVID. We want to connect authentically with people. And I think that a podcast does that because it's your space, and you can do something like a more dynamic that is, like doing a live show like what we're doing right now. You can connect directly with people, and you can also do something that is a pre-recorded show, however you want, and transition to something exciting after you're like mastered that first step. So I think that's one of the reasons why most people like podcasting, because it's just you and I, it's intimate. And by the way, tip for anyone who's doing a podcast, do not use you all, y'all, you guys. It's you and the listener. So don't make them like as a group. Say you, like make it personal. It's just you and I, friend, chatting about whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah, really, really good point, Anna. It's so easy; it sort of trips off your tongue, doesn't it? And that you're talking to an audience. But yeah, she's absolutely right. Just focus on one to one, because it is really intimate, isn't it? That you're actually in their head, basically. It's sort of more intimate in a way like that than if you're talking to somebody face to face, because you're actually talking to them in their head. So yeah, and you can, and they will listen generally to your whole episode, won't they? They're
Yeah.
not just gonna flit in and out. That's what the stats say, isn't it?
Yes, and something that I think is really interesting, and I had a little bit of a beef with people who are like, "Hey, podcast nation," and I'm like, if you just launched your podcast, like, there's no nation, like, it's just a few people. So treat them as your friends, make them like excited for like for them to be on your show. Don't go like, "Hey, nation community," where people feel like they're part of like this group and they're like nobodies. So if you're starting a brand online, make every person feel special, because that's what bigger creators are seeking and you already have it. So don't go ahead and just like, I'm a big brand and I have like don't do that. Like really lean into the authenticity of being a smaller creator, because that excites a lot of people. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh my god, and can I book a time with you?" Wait, what? And I'm like, yes. Of course you can. It doesn't feel like they're like, "Oh, you're just like you're on social media." I'm like, yes, because I'm authentically me. Like I want you to connect with me as a person. And I know that you can relate to this too, Katy, like the fact that like you can connect with people on a personal level.
Yes. You just said an incredible quote. So I'm just saying this now so that when I look at the transcript later, I can find that, because that was mega, and I wanted to quickly write it down. And I've not managed to write it down in time, but I expect you'll be giving loads of great quotes, quotable sayings from the wisdom of Anna. Yeah, so it's it's very, very special, isn't it? And it's unlike any other space. What do you think, Anna, about as a podcaster, how you feel personally that you're connecting with people? Because at the moment it's still quite hard, isn't it, on the actual podcasting platforms? Oops.
Oh, I'm still here. I'll be troubleshooting live.
There we go. There we go.
Go ahead.
How do you feel about podcasters themselves, and how they feel like they've got that connection with their audience? Because when we're live, we get instant connection back. Maybe people will put comments like we've got. Maybe we can see people putting love hearts and stuff like that. We get that instant response, don't we? And at the moment with podcasting, there's very, very little, and I think that can cause that thing that we can call pod fade, when a typical thing is, if somebody hasn't got a strategy behind them that Anna can help you with, they can stop recording and sort of fade.
Yeah, that happens. So basically, what I normally work with clients is really understanding what is the goal of the podcast. So I'm going to detour a little bit from my answer, because when you're using a podcast to grow your business or grow your online brand, it comes down to 7 things. One, the way most people do it is just to create content online, like marketing content, online content for their website. A lot of clients that I work with, they're like, I don't like writing, so I prefer doing that. I'm like, great, let's do that. And then they can use it also to network with decision makers, or create content that is like elevating them to a thought leader level. Also, there are ways that you can do is career switching. I've been seeing that a lot lately, especially after COVID. You can start networking with people who are in different industry, learn about that industry itself, and then kind of like dive in if that's something that you're like, what, like I actually dig this. And then another way is to use it for just a passion project or a hobby. I don't like calling it just because there's so much work that goes into it, but also sales, selling what you have, and lead generation. And so knowing that you have all of these 7 goals, you start to understand what does matter to you. Because if you're using the show to network with the person in front of you, you're not really going to put a lot of effort or like worry or intention behind like communicating with like the audience that is listening. I always tell clients, just make sure that obviously you're maximizing your content. So obviously you're creating content that people want to be engaging with, because that's a mistake that a lot of people do. They're just like doing 7, live shows a week because all they want is like that, like face to face with you, right? You being the host. But so when you're actually using it to connect with your audience and build that like lead generation, like warm up the leads to then buy products and services for you from you, you really need to consider like the podcast as a piece of your puzzle. So do you have a way? One, are you asking for engagement? A lot of the times when I'm doing my podcast, I ask people, hey, what did you think? Are you going to be implementing this? Are you going to be using something that I talked about? Like, was this like an aha moment for you? But I don't just do that, because I think most podcasters don't think how they actually consume content and their user behavior. So when someone is listening in the car and driving, maybe what will happen is that at the end of that drive, they don't remember anymore that like they wanted to create something for the listener or whatever it is. So they're just thinking, oh, okay, like I just listened to the podcast. I'm not like thinking I have to reach out to the host. So when you're promoting the podcast online, sending it on newsletters, sending it on social media, all of these things, like doing an Instagram live or doing Insta stories or whatever stories it is on the platform you're using, ask for that feedback. Tell them, hey, I just talked about this. If you listened, let me know. And especially on newsletters, I get a ton of responses from people like, oh, I just listened to the episode. That was so great. And so, how often are you asking for feedback? But also, don't ask just once and like done and dusted, because people forget. People are like, we have busy lives. And so, one, optimize your content for engagement. So, do talk to the listener. Again, most people will take forever. Like the one episode that changes your life, you will go on social media and say, I just listened to this, mind blowing. But for most times, like think about how you consume content. You don't go on social media every other episode you listen, like, love this. Like, you don't. So just be patient, but foster their relationship.
Cool. Right, I need to make notes on this afterwards. And guys, I'm hoping to make this into a blog post afterwards so that, you know, you can really knuckle down and remember exactly all the billions of helpful tips that Anna's giving. So, Anna, what about somebody who thought about podcasting a bit, but they've thought there's just no way that I'll be able to fit this in. It just sounds quite overwhelming, and you know they're busy, they're doing load of different things. Is there a way that they can start a successful show? Not just bang some random thing out, but one that sounds pretty good and gets engagement and everything, with a really busy business life or, you know, charity, whatever they're doing, but they're just thinking about, can I add a podcast?
Yeah, I think that as I will start these answers by stating first that for most people, it takes a minimum of 6 months to actually start seeing return on your podcast. And for me, it's just like set that expectation. Know that's going to be a situation where you're just building that brand, building that awareness. But then when you start seeing results, they really are exciting. And so when you're looking at like incorporating podcasting into your life, I want you to think like, again, I talked about the 7 ways you can use your podcast, like the goals you can set for your podcast. And so a lot of times content creators or business owners or nonprofits consider starting a podcast, but then they look at it as like a different part of their communications. And so I want you to consider first, like, what are the gaps that I have in my communication, things that I've been wanting to talk for a while, and how can the podcast be repurposed in that? So, like, it does take some effort, and you can make it as complicated or as simple as you want. Like, for instance, video podcasting does take a lot more effort. But if you're doing a live stream, you're setting up your show once, and then, you know, there's something to be said. I used to do live radio, I was a host in Portugal, and it's really interesting that, like, your brain switches to a on it when you're doing it live, and when you're doing it recorded, I remember doing this when I was pre-recording content for, you know, like the later down the week if I was going on vacation or whatever it was. Like, I would mess up so much because I knew that I could fix what I was doing. And so when I was live, there was just no way that I could if I could, I would find a way to like fix it in a moment. And so I want to invite people to understand, like, what is your zone of genius, and don't overcomplicate it. A lot of people say, oh, my peers, so and so. I literally just did a podcast episode on this, by the way. It's episode 14, is out right now on the podcast space and on thepodcastspace.com/podcast. And where I'm covering like the 3 things that actually like content gurus use, and one of them is this, is like, do not overcomplicate your processes. I talk to so many people who tell me like, I bought this and this because my friend who's like a tech guru suggested this, and I'm like, okay, so why haven't you started doing anything? And he's like, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm not a techie person. And I'm like, well, like literally step number one got you completely like stalled. And so let's figure out like what tech equipment do you need. But like most importantly, it's not necessarily about the tech. Like for instance, my room is not treated to like audio levels. I have like a really thick rug, I have some thick curtains, but I don't have like any sound paneling. So I picked a microphone, this guy here, that really is good at like, sometimes I have, because in America you have something called the gas lawn mowers, and they're really loud, and my neighbor has the lawn people come sometimes when I'm recording, and you cannot really hear it on my microphone because it's a microphone built for that. So I don't have to spend too much time in post-production fixing the audio. And then it's really about looking at, one, what's the purpose of your podcast, but also like, if you like doing short content, create shorter content, right? Like you don't need to blab for 20 minutes if your content is 7 minutes long. And shorter content has two benefits. One, it's easier and quicker to create and publish. But then secondly, it actually creates what I'm calling the people can listen to it like multiple times, and so it helps your podcast rank higher because people are actually consuming all the episodes through. So instead of just listening to like 50%, so there's actual benefits to creating micro episodes, and people will remember everything you talked. So that's a good thing.
Brilliant.
So I think like those are like mainly my two suggestions. Like I normally help clients understand what is their zone of genius and create content around that, because most times people are like, wait, I can do a shorter solo episode, is that a thing? And I'm like, yes. So that's exciting to see their excitement. We're like, oh, I can master this now, like that sounds doable.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, lots of like Amy Porterfield, for example, who she really uses podcasting in a big way. She started doing shorts, video podcast short episodes, shorties, I think she calls them. And then I saw other people start to do them. So yeah, it is a thing. And so many people say, I don't know, I couldn't talk for that long. I don't know what I would talk about. I don't know what I'd say. That's a real stumbling block for in people's minds. But as you said, if it's in their zone of genius, a lot of us can just ramble on, as it were, about what we love for ages. And it's surprising what we have in us that without a whole ton of preparation or, like you said, editing and everything, we can actually do that. And especially as short episodes are a thing, and they're a great thing as well.
Yeah, and it's funny you're saying that. So there's, in America, we have Podcast Movement, which is like one of the major podcast conferences here in the US. And I've met Amy's podcast producer actually multiple times, because we just like met in the first one, and then like we just like kept like bumping into each other, and she's super lovely, and she was like talking about like we started doing the short episodes. And it's just been so interesting to kind of like see someone who's a big creator to also do the transition to video, because Amy for the longest time was like, I don't want to do video, whatever. But now she's embracing it. And I think that also it comes from a place of like, okay, one, like she's been podcasting on audio format for years and it's nailed down, and then she transitioned to video, and it's such a different mindset because you have like body language, setting up the camera, making eye contact with the camera, like so many different things. Like for instance, my camera disconnected somehow earlier, and I had to fix, like that's an added like stressor that can be incorporated in your workflow. If you have too many things, it will be stressful. But I think that it's just really about creating, and I talk about this all the time. If you were in a networking event, if you were anywhere and someone would ask you one thing about your industry, you would not tell them like, oh, excuse me, I have to go and like research for like 20 minutes and I'll get back to you. Like you would say something, right? So
Yeah.
it's just like coming from that place of trusting in your skill set, but
Yeah.
trusting that you have to deliver value in a way that is
Yeah.
doable for you. You don't have to start the sweats and be like, oh my God, this like, needs to be perfect. Like, what is the minimum value product that you can deliver to your listeners?
Yeah.
And honestly, short episodes are so good for building that, because it's just like it's super concise, and it also shows to the listener that you are mindful of their time.
Yes. Yes. Woohoo. Yeah, I love this conversation about talking about what lights you up and what your passion is, because I mean, as a voice coach, as part of what I do, your voice comes alive. And if you're on live video at the same time or a different time or doing reels or whatever, so you're on some sort of form of video as well, you'll see it in your face, your whole demeanor, in your eyes. You will relax, your breathing will be better. So whoever's editing your podcast later won't have so much of a nightmare, maybe. And your voice gets interest and dynamics in it, and it just sounds so much better, and you can do it. And with the short episodes, you're able to create more content with that as well, so you can get more downloads, and people are going to be listening to the end, like Anna was saying. So you can maybe grow your show quicker, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, and again, I think if you don't have a podcast, you probably don't know this, but um, people pick episodes based on two things: if they are a super fan or if they are an occasional listener. So if they fall on the category of the super fan, they will consume every single episode in binge. Maybe they don't listen for a couple of weeks, but then they'll listen through like the whole catalog because they just love you. And the occasional listener, these are people who will pick your episodes based on title. And that's why it's super, super important to title your episodes with a specific strategy in mind, and not just like title this, kind of like Live with Anna. Like it literally says nothing. But if it would be like the title of this episode, like how to create content with a busy schedule, like people are like, oh, that is me. I want to know more about that. And it just like really guides the listener to consume your content. So if you're doing that, make sure that you are creating excitement through the titles, but also, again, if you have episodes, and there are podcasters that create, I don't know, of course they have to have teams in production to do this, but there are people who create 3-hour episodes every couple weeks. And so if you are a small business owner, or if you're someone who just has a lot going on, is that doable, right? Like doing a short episode in, if you block time, and batching is something that I think it's super important, which is creating content in kind of like chunks. So do the research one day for all the episodes, and then record a bunch of episodes in one sitting. If you have 1 hour, you can record 4 episodes. Think about that, like how easy it is when, because you're already warming up your voice. Actually, I want to ask you, Katie, like what is the one thing that in terms of voice people come and ask you about? Like what is the number one like concern that people have, or like problem with their voice?
There's different things. One of the main things that people ask me about with podcasting is about filler words. I always say, how do I stop doing that? That's a main thing. I say,
You
it's
cannot.
yeah, yeah. So there's a simple way of sort of learning to stop doing that so much, and it's just about partly your mindset, giving yourself space to breathe and think, and actually giving your audience space to breathe and think. Allow them to dwell on what you've just said, and allow yourself the grace to have a breath. We're all human. We all need to breathe. So often we put these in because we're thinking, and we're nervous about having a space, having silence.
We're
think,
uncomfortable with the silence, aren't we?
yeah, we've got to fill that with something. Got to put something in there. And it's a habit that we get into. So that's one of the things a lot of people say. But there's a lot of things. Breathing, people speaking in a monotone, people going up all the time at the end of their sentences, and therefore they sound really insecure all the time because they're asking a question.
My favorite is when people go down. They're like, well, what's about next? And you're like, God, are you excited to be here or what?
Yeah, everything's a bit of a downer. And there's another habit that people have got, a sort of trend. We're on the way out, hopefully, of this trend, but it's speaking in that creaky voice as well, which is actually a bit annoying when you're listening to a podcast.
Oh my God. Why is that a trend?
It's vocal fry. It's a thing that was in American sitcoms a lot, where they're just relaxed and it sounds really croaky and it doesn't sound great.
God.
On podcast. But yeah, filler words are something that people think, I'm never going to be able to do a podcast because I say a lot of filler words, or fill in the blank. But if you use something like Descript, for example, at some point in your editing workflow, you can just delete them pretty well. I don't know what Anna will think because she's, a real pro at this, but for my ears, it sounds okay in general. You do have to go through it. You can just bulk get rid of every single filler word, but you will find that it sounds a bit odd in some places. It will sort of jump to a middle of a word by accident. But
I do have an editing tip for that. Actually, I actually take out, when I don't do production anymore, but when I was doing it, I would select filler words to blend in sections where maybe a client like that's another filler word that I say a lot, but it's okay. And I remember copying those and actually using it in the audio. Again, you can only do this in audio format, but it would be so easy to bridge sections. So if you were talking a bit slower on that section, and then the next one you would be talking really loud or really fast, or like just the cadence was completely different. If you add a filler word in between, the listener cannot tell.
Wow, I've never heard that strategy before. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's just one of those that nobody thinks about it. But like when you listen, I want everyone to test this and let us know. Like honestly, tag us. And if you're like, change my life. I mean, I can hear it normally. So I know like most people probably don't think about this, but I know when like two sections don't match. Yes. And so I'm like, I want people to try and let us know.
Yeah, that is really, really interesting. Great. Now, Anna, we could talk forever, I think.
We could. This is so fun.
And you will just keep giving us you'll have to come back on the show, basically.
Anytime. I told you already before we started the show, I was like, anytime you need me, I will be there because your show is just so fun.
Oh, yeah, so thank you so much. So stay tuned, basically, everybody, but don't go right now because we are going to have a fun little lightning round, sort of quiz type thing. I'm going to ask Anna in 2 minutes flat about yes or this or that. So does she like this? Does she like that? That type of thing. Okay, so this is just a bit of fun so we can get to know Anna a bit more. And Anna, if you don't want to answer anything, there's nothing embarrassing on here, by the way.
It's all good.
But you can say pass if you want to, okay? So in 2 minutes. Right, do you prefer texting or talking?
Talking.
Your favourite day of the week?
Oh, wow. I don't know. Maybe Wednesday, because it's like halfway through the week.
Yay. Nickname your parents used to call you?
Oh, Tata. That was the first word
Oh,
I ever said.
oh, how sweet. What is the last song you downloaded?
I don't know. I don't know. And also, like, who downloads songs anymore? We stream it. And
Last song you
I'm like,
streamed, do you know?
I don't remember. I can check it. Okay. While everyone's like looking at this, I'm like, what am I? Having Spotify on my phone is Vance Joy, Missing Piece. That was it.
Oh, okay. If you could, this isn't this or that, really, is it? If you could travel back to time, what period would you go to?
Oh, darn. I thought about this. As women, it's really hard to pick a time because it's just a hot mess. Okay, I will say 70s.
Okay, why?
Because they were like groovy and fun and music
Groovy.
and love and peace. Yes.
The place that you most want to travel that you haven't been to already.
I really want to go to Japan.
Yeah.
Sounds like a really
Beautiful.
fun,
Yeah.
just like so different from everything that we like Westerners.
Yes, and in
Have.
the springtime as well. Be lovely with the cherry blossom. Your favorite junk food?
Oh God, Chick-fil-A.
Your favorite childhood TV show? Just as the last one.
Oh my goodness. I don't know. Just at the top of my mind, I have the worst memory. So, maybe okay. Like the first thing that comes to mind is Rugrats.
Oh, Rugrats. Oh, I remember that. I've got my keyboard here. Hang on. Hang on. That was it, wasn't it?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love this.
Oh, Rugrats.
And you can play it. Oh my gosh, that's what a talent.
Podcast listeners, you might not have been able to hear that very well.
No, it was actually it was great. I could
because I had got my piano down a bit quiet. They were weird,
Yes!
Rugrats.
This is the highlight of my guesting, like, kind of, like, stints. Like, I love this. I never had someone play the piano live. That's awesome.
Start randomly playing a theme tune
Yes.
on the piano.
You see, that's why podcasting and live streaming is so fun, is that, like, you really, if you allow yourself, it can be fun and it can create so many exciting moments for you and the listener. I mean, like, I'm just gonna have the Rugrats theme song playing in my head all day now.
Oh, so fun, so fun. Yeah, so thank you so much, Anna. I really, really appreciate it. It's yeah, my mind is whirring around tens of a dozen, and we're getting love hearts on the screen. Mwah! Thank you to everyone who's watching live, and mwah! Thank you to all the podcast listeners and replay listeners. We really appreciate it. And don't panic, because Anna will be back, no doubt at all, to give us more of these golden nuggets. So she's got to be off now because she's busy doing all of her wonderful strategy stuff. So I will let her go. And thank you, everyone, again for being with us. And we will see you. I will see you on the next Thrive with Live show. And Anna, hopefully, will see you very, very soon. So
Yes.
keep
And
watching and listening.
Can I do a little last plug before we hop off?
Please. I told Anna she must remind me about this because I told her.
You're just like, let's just go. Let's leave.
Yeah, no. You need to get in contact with her because, yeah, she just gives so much amazing goodness all the time. So I will stop talking, Anna. Please tell us where we can find you and how, if anyone wants to work with you, how they can do that, please.
Yes. So first off, follow the podcast space on Instagram is the podcast space, singular. And obviously also if you're struggling with starting your podcast or you're in a rut and you don't know what's wrong and you want to start seeing some downloads jumping off or some engagement up or just start making money with your podcast, reach out to me, thepodcastspace.com. And there you can reach out to me and see what we can work together. We have a podcast power hour, like in 60 minutes, we get going, we get you figured out like what is wrong, how to fix it, and you can implement those right away. So if you want, you can reach out over there on the podcastbase.com. And yeah, it's just been such a pleasure, Katy. Like, I really appreciate you having me on the show. What a great, fun show we had today.
Oh, we certainly did. And everyone, I just want to sort of reiterate really how mega what Anna does is for us, because you know we can't pod fade when people fade away after the 6th, 7th, 8th episode is just, it happens so much, and it's such a shame, because podcasting, like she says, is just is a wonderful thing to have as part of your strategy, and it's, you develop this such a close connection with your audience, and you're able to help them so much with, and it's just a real shame if you are one of the people who, because maybe you don't see the connection from people, you know, you're not seeing the results, you can't, you I would really recommend that you had a look at podcastspace.com. Did you say it was? Yeah.
Yep. There's
And
free
see,
resources there, and even the podcast where you can listen and subscribe.
yeah. Just get in touch before you consider stopping or giving it a break or whatever, because I'm sure she will motivate you and help you and make you see where you can make improvements, and how you can really develop your show. So thank you, Anna, you're wonderful, and have a wonderful day. Thank you, everyone. God bless, count your blessings, and press record. See ya. Wait a minute, there we go.